Today we're going to be taking a look at Tetris and the biggest reasons why you should see this movie. The film is set in 1988 and follows game developer and publisher Hank Rogers, who discovers Tetris at a Las Vegas showcase. Hank quickly becomes obsessed with the game. He can't stop thinking about it, his kids can't stop playing it, and now he's looking for a way to monetize it by securing the licensing rights to sell the game. But in order to do so, Hank has to travel to Russia where the game was invented and must negotiate a contract with the game's creator and most importantly, the Russian government. Things become even more difficult when old contracts, greedy corporations, and corrupt politicians get involved, but after putting all of his financial assets into Tetris, Hank still needs to find a way to make sure that his deal is the one that comes out on top. Tetris is a surprisingly tense thriller. Even though most of this movie is going through contract negotiations, which on the surface could be pretty boring, I enjoyed it and found it engaging because it was kind of like a mystery. Going through old contracts and finding the loopholes, finding out people's hidden agendas. But once Hank lands in Russia, this movie is tense and never really gives you time to breathe. And of course, a lot of the tension in this movie comes from the clashing of American capitalist ideologies with Soviet Union communism in the midst of the Cold War. So throughout his time in Russia, Hank is always having to deal with the authorities, he's always being threatened with imprisonment, and there's even times where he's getting beaten up. But I also enjoyed the more subtle moments of tension, like Hank in a business meeting trying to make a joke, trying to make small talk, but then it completely falling on its face because of the different cultural codes. And by the end of this film, when the tension is at its highest, it straight up feels like Argo. So it's tension from America versus Soviet Union. But at the same time, I enjoyed how this movie explored the gray within that. Mostly the people in Russia who aren't bad people, they're just stuck in this absolutely horrible situation. And the best scenes in the movie that deal with this are the ones that follow Alexei, the creator of Tetris. Hank tries to bond with Alexei, and it's in their moments together that you see a side of Russia that isn't often explored. There's a really fascinating scene where Alexei and Hank go to a club and everyone's dancing, having a good time, even listening to American pop songs. But then there's moments where reality does set in, and there's a moment in this film that's truly heartbreaking, where Hank is asked why he trusts Alexei so much, and he responds by saying, well, he's the only one who has nothing to gain from all of this. There's other characters that we meet in Russia that I found to be pretty compelling, because when we first meet them, they make decisions that you perceive as one way, but then over time, you start to realize that all those decisions that they made were what they truly thought was best for their country, and there's this sense of loyalty to that, and I really enjoyed seeing that. I thought Taron Egerton as Hank Rogers was a fascinating lead. There's a line in this movie where he tries to validate all the actions that he's made in this movie by saying he's just trying to give his family a better life. But to be honest, I never really bought that. In reality, he's kind of just a shitty father, a shitty husband, and a greedy capitalist like a bunch of the other people in this movie. But because Egerton is such a charismatic lead, you're still more than willing to go through this journey with him. And lastly, I enjoyed the creative decision to add this video game inspired flair to the visuals and effects throughout this movie. To be honest though, it's mostly used as a gimmick, like during transitions, but there's a car chase sequence in this film that really incorporates these elements, like adding recognizable sound effects or the animations of like taking damage whenever the car collides with something. And I wish that we got more of this throughout the film, like less of the throwaway transition types and more things that enhance the action that is actually going on in the scene. But those are my biggest reasons for why you should check out Tetris. If you happen to see it, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.